Hello, Nats fans, and welcome to a trade deadline version of the DoDcast today. I'm joined by both Ron Juckett and Ricky Keeler. And how are you guys doing today?
We're doing well, Drew. How are you?
Doing good, Drew.
I'm doing well. I'm excited. So today, the Nationals for a while didn't look like maybe they would get anyone, and then right after the 4 o'clock trade deadline, it was announced that they acquired Brandon Kintzler from Minnesota, and he spent a majority of this year closing. And really, they didn't have to part with much. They parted with Tyler Watson. And can you tell us a little bit about Watson, Ricky?
Yeah, absolutely. Watson this year has been in Low A Hagerstown for the bulk of the year, was a South Atlantic League All-Star, just like Mackenzie Mills was, who's now in Philadelphia. 6-4, a 4.35 ERA. Very good strikeout rate, about 9.5 strikeouts per nine. Had 10 last year with Auburn, so the number is pretty much the same. He does get up a lot of hits, about 9 hits per nine. But he's been rising up the system. He's 17th in MLB.com. It's a little surprised the Nats dealt both of their productive minor league pitchers this year, but they are in lower levels. So Kintzler definitely helps the big league club, and that's really the ultimate goal: help your big league club without giving up much. And to get a guy on a rental, that's good enough for me in my mind.
Yeah, Ricky knows more about the minor league stuff than I do. But, I think that if that was the best available, maybe you could go out there without having to give up anyone that most of you would recognize. I think you have to do it. I'm not sure that Kintzler is the guy that closes there. I believe I saw that he had a strikeout rate of 5.4 per nine. But if you add him, Doolittle, Matt Madsen, and possibly Cody Glover in returning, I think one of those four will emerge as a closer. And, what you've seen from Madsen and what you saw last night from Doolittle is all positive. I think the team is stronger today than it was yesterday, and you didn't have to give up too much for it. And remember, they drafted a bunch of pitchers this year too, especially starters. So, I'm with Ricky. It's $1 million. I think when you look at what they've done in the last month, I think it was a good move.
Yeah, and like Ricky said, Kintzler, his contract is expiring at the end of this year, so he could potentially be a rental like Nats fans saw last year with the Mark Melanson trade, but they didn't have to give up as much this year as last year. They got Felipe Rivero, who's pitching very well in Pittsburgh this year. And Brandon Kintzler, he's pitched phenomenally for Minnesota. He was an all-star this year. He's got a 2.78 ERA. He's 28 for 32 in save opportunities, although we don't know yet if he will be the closer here. They may stick with Doolittle or Madsen or possibly even Cody Glover when he returns, like Ron said. And then he's got the 1.15 whip and 246 batting average against. So he has put up some very great numbers, and it'll be a lot of fun to watch him in whatever role he takes with the Nationals.
I think they give him a shot as closer. I mean, that's pretty much why they picked him up. But you just never know. And, it's always good to have options. And this entire season, right from the start of spring training, it's, throw the spaghetti noodles on the wall and see what sticks. I feel better about that now than I did in April. And overall, I think the bullpen, well, look, we'll talk about the Dodgers a bit later. The bullpen, I think now is very well constructed. And overall, they didn't really give up anyone of value to get it, unless you're a Blake Trinan fan.
Speaking of Blake Trinan, funny you throw that name out there, Ron. Kintzler does have 6 grounded into double plays this year, which is the most of any reliever on the Twins. It's third on the team, actually. So maybe Kintzler fills the Blake Trinan role of somebody you bring in to get a double play because he's a sinker ball guy.
Well, I think the huge advantage the team has with such a big lead is that you're not pressed to make a playoff spot. This team's offense is too good. They're not going to collapse. And so you can find out who fits the best roles. This really is it's a 60-game audition to find out who sets up best to face the Cubs and then possibly the Dodgers and the NLCS.
Yeah, and on MLB Network, Tom Verducci was talking a little bit about how maybe Kintzler doesn't close because he doesn't have the strikeout stuff of a typical closer. But like Ricky said, he primarily relies on his sinker. So he could come in maybe a 7th or 8th inning role and just get ground balls and just get outs and keep the line moving to Ryan Madsen and Sean Doolittle in the later innings.
He was mentioning that, and I found it interesting that Verducci's great. Chose to ignore the fact that Ryan Madsen's throwing 99 out of the bullpen because that's a game changer. I mean, Doolittle's great with the strikeouts, but if Madsen's going to keep doing that, nobody expected that, and that just adds another another high velocity arm into your bullpen.
Yeah, and he was doing that last night. Even they look so comfortable that they're matched up together, and I think if it may not be the sexy names that you think of with Chapman and Davis and all that. The Nats have done a good job setting up a situation in the playoffs where if they're ahead after 6 with this combination of pitchers, they have a pen that's not going to allow a lot of runs. I know that sounds kind of silly. I can hear them laughing in the chat, Drew, at that, but it's true. If you have a good contact ground ball guy, along with what we've seen so far from Madsen and Doolittle, why not? It turns it into a 6-inning game. And if Steven Strasburg is healthy, and we expect that he is, since they were not even close to being on a starter today, then I take my chances.
Yeah, and they didn't go get a starter. So if you have Max Scherzer, Steven Strasburg, assuming he's healthy, Gio Gonzalez pitched really well this year. Tanner Roark, although he struggled, he is looking better. And then Edwin Jackson, he's pitched very well in 2 of his 3 starts so far. If you can get 6-7 good innings out of those guys and then hand it off to this 3-headed monster now that the Nationals have in the back of their bullpen, it's really going to be tough to beat.
And it tells you with the lack of a starting pitching move that Steven Strasburg is close to healthy and probably comes back fairly soon.
Yeah, Dan Straley's name never came up in trade talks today from anyone. There was no one that was really after Lance Lynn. Darvish went pretty late. The Nats were never going to be on Sonny Gray. If they thought that Strasburg was really going to be hurt, I think they would have made a push for Gray just because he has 3.5 years control. No real talks of any starters, coming to Washington, and I think that speaks volumes of where they think Strasburg is right now. So maybe in this case, we just should take a deep breath and be glad that that's the case. Until
Wednesday, then we can take a deep breath on actually who starts Wednesday, whether it's AJ Cole, whether it's the entire. Maybe you throw it. Maybe right now you just say, you know what, we'll throw a bullpen day. Everybody throws an inning, and you have a day off the next day. Because I don't really know if Dusty will meet with the media fairly soon. I honestly don't know who's pitching Wednesday, and I couldn't take a guess. I thought it would be today that they would get somebody that fill that role, but they didn't.
Unless there's a story that comes out in the next couple of days, I really don't think they were ever serious on anybody. The one guy that, outside of losing Justin Wilson, and it's very curious what the Tigers wanted for what they offered the Tigers. They just never. Kinsler was the only name that popped up today, and that's the one that they got. Now, Drew doesn't know this yet, but his father's packing the back of the car now, and Drew is driving down to Miami to start Wednesday. Just breaking that news right here.
Byron Kurt tweeted Mike Rizzo, who's meeting with the media right now, said Kinsler makes it a very versatile bullpen, very talented bullpen with experience. Also said many guys can get the final out. So it's like you said, this is still a trial by fire. And we even talked about it last night, Ron, that I don't really think Sean Doolittle has done anything to not keep getting closer chances because the stuff looks good. He's just either walking the leadoff guy, but last night was his best outing that he's had all season.
Yeah, he looked good last night. You don't change it if it's not broken. And with what's unsure about what Glover will do. And also, the other big surprise, and we kind of tore him down a little bit earlier in the season, but he's done really well as of late, is Eddie Romero is finding the strike zone now with his 100-mile-an-hour stuff. I mean, they, as Rizzo just said, I mean, they have a lot of options, and because the regular season is pretty much a done deal now, there's no pressure on them to figure this out immediately. If it goes bad one night, you plug in the next one. It's all about October with Washington.
Yeah, and I think what could work well with them is what Cleveland did last year. You have a guy like Andrew Miller who is a proven closer, but his willingness to pitch really in any role whenever the team needs him, that proved to be huge for Cleveland as they went to the World Series. And so now the Nats have Brandon Kinsler, Sean Doolittle, and Ryan Madsen, who all have closing experience. So really you can kind of play the matchups. If you need to use a guy like Doolittle in the 6th or 7th inning, you can, and trust that Kinsler or Madsen can hold it down in the 9th and get the save.
I'd be very curious if teams in general go for that 5-6 out stopper type that Terry Francona used so well with Miller. Joe Madden did it with Chapman. It won them the World Series, but he was toast by the time that was there. And I'm sure part of the problem that the Yankees have with him is because, look, he got a lot of use there he wasn't used to. Are you surprised, guys, that names like Raciel Iglesias we didn't hear about today, or the Blue Jays becoming sellers and not Osuna? I mean, there were some possible decent, of course, Zach Britton, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later, but the Nats weren't ever getting him. You know, there was some decent names out there that never caught fire and remained with their teams.
Drew, I'll let you go first on that one.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that those big names we didn't hear anything about them, because although maybe they would have been unlikely to move, they could bring back some great returns. I know for a guy like Raisel Iglesias, who's young and he's really controllable he's got a really reasonable contract. He's never making more than $5 million to be potentially an elite closer. He could bring back a guy like Victor Robles or Juan Soto. So, yeah, I was a little surprised to see that we never even heard their names.
Yeah, I would agree. I think when you look at this trade deadline, it was really about pitching and starting pitching with Gray and Darvish. I mean, Britton, his health issues are still too much to overlook. And you look at other relief arms out there. You weren't Iglesias, you have to give up the moon. Osuna, you'd have to give up the moon. And Brad Hand, by the way, I'm glad the hand puns are over until the winter. No more hand puns, please.
The Padres held their hand.
A hand in the pen is 3 outs in the whatever, but finish it.
I'm not going there.
We're 3 outs in the book, okay. But but I look at it as, look, I think they made the right moves. They weren't going to go crazy today. Juan Soto, I know somebody tweeted us, like, why wouldn't they give up Juan Soto? Because they believe how talented he is. They believe how talented Victor Robles is and in AA. They believe Eric Fetty, despite what you guys think from yesterday out there that criticized Eric Fetty yesterday. They believe in Eric Fetty. They believe in Carter Kieboom. The Nats are middle of the pack in the farm system because of those 4 guys. Otherwise, they would be low toward the bottom. I mean, that's really what you have to sort of balance. Winning now, you're not the Cubs. You're not 108-year curse. You're not going to – it's not everything is going to be make or break this year. This team's still good next year. And you don't have position players that you can just throw into the lineup every day like they do. So you have to balance short-term with long-term. I think that they're doing that fine.
Yeah, they've held on to everybody. They've done a remodel as much as you can do a remodel in the middle of a year, and haven't lost anybody. I mean, I was surprised that Mackenzie Mills went for Howie Kendrick, but, this is the type of things that when I started with District on Deck that Ricky told me about Mike Rizzo. It's all kind of moves that you don't expect. And that's exactly what's there. If you look at where this team was a month ago with the bullpen and where it is today, yes, there was no sexy name to come to Washington today. And so a lot of people will be upset to see what the Dodgers did or what the Yankees did today. You know what? This is all about improving the team. The Nationals, when healthy, I think have had the best chance that they've ever had to get out of the NLDS. If there's a better team out there, Los Angeles and Chicago have the resources to spend on that Washington doesn't have. And so, this is not a bad team whatsoever. It's still a 95, 96, 97 win team. Is there no one in the chat, Drew?
Yeah, I was about to take a quick look at the chat. Seth Ross said that the Nats got a low-key good pickup in Brandon Kinsler. And, yeah, like you said, while they didn't get a sexy name, Brandon Kinsler is a great addition. And I think he'll really do an excellent job of bolstering the back end of this bullpen in whatever role he fills. And Seth also mentioned that the Nationals didn't part with any of their top 10 prospects. So, yeah, you've got 3 quality relievers for the back end of the bullpen without really parting with any top prospects.
And only one person off the Major League roster, which is why I thought that Brian Goodwin might have been a target, because that would be the guy that really doesn't have a natural position to play next year when everyone's back, assuming that Taylor continues to do what he does and Eaton goes and plays a corner outfield spot or vice versa. I thought he really was going to be available, and even then they held on to him. That bench is just as strong today, guys, as it was yesterday. And while that kind of sounds dumb out of my mouth, that's actually a big deal.
We had somebody else chime in. We sort of asked this discussion, but I didn't want to overlook it, from PY Rex. So thanks for chiming in. Do you think the Nationals will pick up a starter by the waiver deadline? Remember, you can still make trades. People can clear waivers and stuff like that. And the Nats did that last year with Mark Scrabbles of Chinsky and Matt Thornton a couple of years ago. So they're known for making moves in August. I don't think you'll see Justin Verlander, but if maybe the Nats want to go out and maybe add a guy on a smaller name, I mean, I could look at guys like Marco Estrada. I could look at, I don't know, maybe Lance Lynn clears. I have no idea. The names you hear at the waiver wire are not usually names that you hear now. So anything can pop up. Last year in August, they made the Sean Burnett deal too. So there's a lot of things Mike Rizzo can do, and he's known for making these August type of moves. I just don't think they're going to be really flashy moves at that.
I could see a starter and a catcher coming sometime in August. Wouldn't surprise me if it didn't happen. But I really think it depends on what Edwin Jackson does. If Edwin Jackson goes out and pitches like he does on the nights that Ricky is with you guys on the DoDcast, big smile from Ricky there, there's no reason to go out and get someone else. You certainly are, Roark seems to have solved whatever issues he had in the month of June. Gio is doing, his confidence remains good. Scherzer is having a Kershaw year, and if Strasburg's healthy, you know what he's capable of doing. So unless there's another injury, I could see it, but I could also see them kind of holding pat. I wondered at 2:00 if that was going to be the case today, whether they would just kind of go, no, I think we're good with who we are. We'll let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, I think that really hinges on, like you said, how Edwin Jackson performs, and if Tanner Roark is able to continue to pitch better, because in the playoffs you really need 4 starters. So while you don't need an Edwin Jackson possibly on your playoff roster, you would really like to see Tanner Roark pitch well and bolster the back end of that rotation.
And don't forget, yesterday Jacob Turner threw 6 scoreless or 6 with 2 runs, Ricky, for Syracuse.
6 scoreless with 2 hits.
So that's always the option. I mean, he keeps going up, and no one seems to claim him when he's sent back down. So, that's another option that has already been accounted for. Won't add anything to the Nationals' bottom line.
Yeah, you really can't have can't have too much pitching. So with Jacob Turner pitching well in the minors, as long as he stays with the Nationals organization, I think that's huge for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the catchers might be something that needs to be addressed unless Pedro Severino stays. Actually, he went down. He was a 26th player, right, Rick?
Yes, I believe so. Yes, Severino went back down.
So, I really do think that those are the 2 positions right now that you might see some movement, but there's no guarantee either way of that. So, who knows?
Yeah, we'll take a look at some of the other trades that happened today. The Dodgers made the 3 big trades. They acquired Yu Darvish from the Texas Rangers, Tony Cingrani from Cincinnati, and Tony Watson from Pittsburgh. So they got 2 back-end the bullpen guys to go with Kenley Jansen, and then Yu Darvish, who he can pitch like an ace. And if Clayton Kershaw isn't able to return or returns and doesn't pitch up to his capabilities, that would be huge for them to still have an ace in the postseason.
They didn't get Zach Britton because I'm not sure the Orioles really know what they're doing. But the Watson and the Darvish deals were probably the worst case scenario for the Nats because they got their another ace starter and they got the solid guy to go behind Jansen at the pen. And for a team that's already on pace to win 114 games, I mean, this is just kind of scary stuff.
Yeah, they are the Golden State Warriors of baseball. I know somebody said don't compare them to that, but when Clayton Kershaw does come back and you throw Darvish, Kershaw, and Alex Wood in a best-of-5 and Rich Hill's your game 4, I mean, you're talking about a good rotation, a good bullpen with Watson, Jansen, and the rest of the setup crew that they have, including a guy like Grant Dayton, not a bad option either. Their lineup is deep. I mean, this is a team that's going to win 105, 110 games, and is the prohibitive favorite in the National League. And I think you have to think of it in this way. I think it should change your expectations of the Nationals this year. Because if they, let's say, win the first round and win a climactic series with likely the Chicago Cubs, which is a victory in and of itself, now you have to go against the supergiant if LA gets past Arizona, Colorado, whoever wins the wild card. It's tough right now, even though the Nats, yes, beat LA 2 out of 3, but these are different teams. We're going to have to find out in September how good these two teams match up against each other. And even then, they both could be moving up for the playoffs, so they might not play their best guys. So right now, the Nats are a distant second to me behind LA.
But they were before the day, too.
But it goes from distant, it just goes further down. I mean, right. It's just the way it is. So your expectation, I think, should be win first round. That's it. Anything you get after a first round, especially if it's LA in the NLCS, you should, and you play a competitive series, you shouldn't have a problem with it.
Drew, you're the biggest Nats fan of the group. What's your thoughts on that?
I think really in the postseason, anything can happen. We've seen in the past, playoffs are a crapshoot, and the Dodgers have typically struggled against left-handed pitching. I think the Nationals with Gio Gonzalez pitching the way he is, then Max Scherzer is really tough no matter who you are to hit off of him, and then all the lefties that the Nationals have in the pen right now, as the bullpen currently sits, we'll see how the bullpen shifts with the Kinsler edition. They have 5 left-handed pitchers and 3 righties, so I think maybe the lefties match up well against the Dodgers, and maybe the Nationals' elite starting pitching matches up well. But yeah, it'll definitely be a good series if that's the NLCS matchup that we get this year.
I would agree with that. And I would have thought at the beginning of the year, I mean, they want to go to the World Series, but just like the Cubs last year in the NLCS, sometimes destiny dates someone else, and it seems to be, right now, as we sit here in the last hours of July, this is the Dodgers' year. And that's not a knock against the Nats. I mean, the Dodgers have endless resources. They go over the luxury tax or competitive balance tax. They don't care. They'll pay it.
And they didn't have to give up their best 2 prospects to do it. Alex Verdugo stayed. Walker Buehler stayed. Their top pitching prospect. Yeah, Willie Calhoun is an outfield prospect. So Texas doesn't really get back the blue chip prospects they want. LA played it perfectly. They waited, and they could have made a Britton deal if they wanted to. They have the prospects to do it. And Mark Feinsand made the tweet during the day. The Nats would have had to pay double for Britton because Peter Angelos and the Nats don't get along because of the Masson thing. And I'm not paying double for a guy with an injury problem that I have to be concerned about. So Zach Britton to me it's not the piece that would put me ahead of LA, so why would I gut my farm system for it?
Right, and as I talked about on Twitter today, the beef between the Nationals and the Orioles isn't between the fans, which if you look at like the Cubs and the Cardinals or the Red Sox and the Yankees, I mean, they're in the same division, so you're not going to make trades for them anyway. I think there's a pretty healthy respect between those two front offices. This is solely the Orioles not liking the Nats for the television thing. It has nothing to do with the fans not liking each other and all that. And it's kind of unfortunate, as far as I'm concerned.
Can I throw out a comment from PY Rex is also asked us, do you wish they should have pursued AJ Ramos more? All of us talked on Friday, and I was surprised he went to the Mets. I really thought the Nats would get involved, and you see the 2 prospects they gave up. The one being Mirandy Gonzalez, who's a good starting pitching prospect. Both of them were at low A. So I was kind of surprised if Ramos was going to be dealt in the division. I thought it would be Washington. So to be honest, I was surprised that did not happen.
Yeah, I was actually very surprised that the Marlins did not hold a fire sale today. I honestly thought Christian Yelich was going to go, or that we'd at least hear more about him. But there was only 2 position players moved today. Again, just like over the winter, this was all about pitching today in Major League Baseball. There's just not enough of it. And the Marlins, whoever buys the team, now has a very unhappy team with a lot of players who were rumored to move and never did. But yeah, I'm surprised he went to the Mets. I can't believe the Mets were buyers. But then again, they spun around Addison Reed to the Red Sox today for 3 names I'd never heard of. So
Yeah, I would have maybe liked to see the Nationals push a little harder for a guy like AJ Ramos. I am happy with the Kinsler addition, but Kinsler is possibly a rental, and Ramos is under team control next year, and that's why he does make a little bit of sense for the Mets. And he is also a bit of a more proven closer. But I think that definitely the Nationals bullpen, as it currently stands, is in good shape to finish out the regular season and possibly go on a deep postseason run.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And then Pyrex also pointed out that the Nationals and Dodgers do have another series against each other in September, and that should give us a taste of how the postseason go and possibly be a postseason preview.
That's in Washington too. Remember, they took 2 out of 3 against LA in LA, and lost to Clayton Kershaw, thanks to Jose Lobaton back-to-back wild pitch pass ball thing.
Again, as I mentioned earlier, you have to keep in mind that series is in mid-September. By that point, both these teams, the way they're playing, might have clinched everything up. The Nats most likely can't catch LA for the 1 seed. So, yes, it's still 2 weeks left in the season. I'm not, to be honest, sure if those guys are going to play their full lineups every day in that series. Or because I don't think either of them are going to want to tip their hand at each other. It's different. I think the bigger series is this weekend at Wrigley. I would love to see the Nationals go into Wrigley and take 2 out of 3 in a potential NLDS preview as opposed to worrying about the LA series next month.
I'd love to see Harper just hit a home run and smile at Joe Madden as he's trotting the bases personally. But
yeah, that certainly would be a lot of fun to watch after the Nationals' last trip to Wrigley when Harper was walked, I believe, 17 times in 4 games.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then, like you said, this Wrigley series, in all likelihood, is a preview of the NLDS, and we just kind of, with the Dodgers, kind of cross that bridge when we get there with the NLCS. You obviously have to beat the Cubs, who are the defending champs, in the first round in order to get to possibly the Dodgers in the NLCS.
And you can kind of take a little bit of solace in the fact that the Cubs didn't really improve themselves today. They did have an 8.5 game swing in the standings in the month of July, which will irritate you. But as far as Britton didn't go there, and Darvish didn't go there, and well, the Pirates weren't going to really trade in the division anyway. All the big names didn't go. Sonny Gray didn't go there. All the big names went elsewhere. So the Cubs are pretty much the same team tomorrow as they were on Sunday. Take that for what you will.
And at some point, the Cubs are going to have to start giving up major league talent with the way they've been dealing Candelario and all these different top Eloy Jimenez and all these top prospects. At some point, the Cubs are going to run out of people to trade. I mean, that's just the way it is. I was kind of surprised they pulled off the Wilson thing. I thought that would have been Houston or LA or one of those teams. But it gives them a nice combo with Justin Wilson and Wade Davis. And now you have to worry about in the 8th inning in a potential NLDS. Wilson can pitch to righties too. So he's likely your full 8th inning guy. And Wade Davis, who is either blown no saves or 1 save. I don't remember the number.
The All-Star save.
Yeah, blew the. No, that was a tie game. He didn't blow the All-Star save.
Okay.
Blew the game, didn't blow a save. Perfect for the stats. Got to put that on the plaque somewhere. Didn't blow any All-Star game saves. That's important. But I think that the Cubs are in good position. I don't think Quintana is supposed to pitch though over the weekend. I think he pitched. I think he's supposed to pitch this week against Arizona. So I don't think you're going to get Quintana in this series.
I know that we're waiting for Ricky to go someplace else, and so I want to talk about this before he has to go. Don't you think the happiest person today is Sonny Gray?
Yes. And I'm not just saying that because he went to the Yankees. At some point, you have to know where your future is. Billy Beane, I think, tried really, really, really hard to not deal with Brian Cashman. They hadn't made a deal in 15 years. There's a reason they haven't made a deal in 15 years. I don't think Billy Beane wants to help the Yankees get that piece that they need. I think both sides came out okay. I mean, Mateo is a good prospect. He's in Double-A. He's starting to mature a little bit, which is good. Fowler had a really tough injury in Chicago this year, was about to make his debut, first at bat, and then he got hurt. So you hope he gets back okay. And Caprillion having Tommy John surgery. I got a chance when I covered the Staten Island Yankees to talk a couple times with Caprillion when he got drafted out of UCLA. I was very impressed. Kid's very professional. I love the fastball. So Caprillion, if he was healthy, would have had a chance to make the Yankees this year. So I think Beane did the best he could. I think he got enough. And I think Gray further helps the Yankees' chances at this division. I think it's a two-team race between the Yankees and the Red Sox. Tampa's made some good moves. I think they're in contention for a wild card. But in the end, I think those two superpowers in the AL East are back and are going to make a run at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Sonny Gray is a good arm. I don't know if he's an ace, but he definitely is a solid 2 or 3 starter. So I think that'll definitely he'll fit in nicely behind Luis Severino in the Yankees starting rotation.
Oh, I think just after a year, sorry, Rick, after 2 years of wondering what his status was going to be, he's just going to be ultimately relieved to be someplace that wants him, because I mean, ever since he started that playoff game a few years ago against the Tigers, the A's have shopped him around. I mean, he knew he would never stay, and I think it's really unfortunate to do that to a kid's ego. Say, yes, you're good, and yes, we're shopping you around every time you're out there. Here's an audition, which most prospects, that's not the case. Once you make the show, you're there for a while. So as much as it pains me to see the Yankees get better today, I'm happy for him. His future, at least for the next few years, is settled, and I think he'll do good things for New York.
And I don't think Gray is necessarily the savior of the Yankees either. He's not going to come in and be looked at like that. The guy who's supposed to be the savior or the best pitcher on the team is Masahiro Tanaka. I mean, that's the guy with 14 strikeouts here. Now, he's supposed to be the ace. Severino, this is new for him. Montgomery, it's new for him. And who knows what will happen now if they got Gray, and Jaime Garcia, even at the back end, I thought was a good move. But Gray, I think the expectations will be high, but not astronomical that he can't achieve over 2 months. And he'll get a nice test. I think Joe Girardi said he's not supposed to debut till this weekend, which the Yankees are in Cleveland. So that could be an ALDS preview if the Yankees do win the division and Cleveland does as well in the Central. Kansas City breathing down their back.
Yeah.
And then another trade in the AL East that the OG Cubs lover commented on. He asked us about the Tim Beckham trade, and Tim Beckham today was traded from the Rays to the Orioles, so it was one of those interdivision trades that you don't typically see too much, but I think that adds some good infield depth for the Orioles. He can back up Jonathan Scope at second base. If Hardy is unable to stay healthy, he can play shortstop, maybe back up Machado at third. So I think that it definitely adds some good bench depth for the Orioles.
I don't know why you use Myers.
I was about to say, what are the Orioles doing? I mean, Tim Beckham, yeah, he's a good young player, and the Rays have Echeverria now, so they can afford to deal Beckham. But getting Hellickson, I know they needed starting pitching, but Baltimore is not in a position to win. The Yankees are back and are going to be in contention the next couple of years. Boston's going to be in contention for the next couple of years. I can look at Tampa Bay even with Cobb and those guys, even though Cobb's a free agent coming up. But even they're in contention. Toronto's going to, I think, improve itself eventually. Baltimore is just not where they're supposed to be. That Chris Davis contract is too much. They're going to lose Machado in a couple of years. They're going to lose Britton in a couple of years. They're not in a win-now mode, and I just don't understand what Dan Duquette and Peter Angelos are doing here.
Spinning their wheels. The franchise is spinning their wheels all the way around. And it's rather unfortunate because there's a rich baseball legacy in Baltimore, and Duquette's a good GM. I mean, he was the one that put together most of the Red Sox team that won the World Series in 2004. He knows what he's doing, and he's usually pretty shrewd, but I don't, as Ricky said, I mean, this is not a team that's about to bounce into contention and make a World Series run.
Yeah, and they don't have a great farm system either, so I think maybe this offseason, I know if I were Dan Duquette, I would maybe put a little thought into possibly trading a guy like Manny Machado, who's going to be a free agent after next season, or Zach Britton, who we heard his name a lot around the deadline today, but he wasn't moved. And they got some other good arms in the back end of the bullpen. Like you got O'Day, Brock, Givens, all in that bullpen. You have some good trade chips, and they're not really going to compete. So why not get some prospects and just kind of do a rebuild?
Well, Machado can buy you a farm system.
Mm-hmm.
Look what happened to the White Sox last year when they moved Sale. He bought them a new farm system, and then when the Sale and Eaton made them instant contenders in 2020, if half that talent pans out, what they got. I think Ricky has run out of adjectives to describe his feelings for Rick Hahn after
prospect wizard Rick Hahn.
Yeah, that's right.
Referred to as the prospect wizard. How many top prospects was that? Like 10, 11? And he got good prospects for Milky, too, yesterday.
Right. And so I think I'm not sure Juckett is the guy that you want to do a rebuild. But it really depends. It all depends on what Angelos wants to do, and no one really knows what he wants to do. So, who knows?
Yeah, and then kind of the final big trade was the guy that the Nats fans know pretty well. Addison Reed got traded from the Mets to the Red Sox today, so he'll fill in the back of the bullpen, pitching with Craig Kimbrell. I think John Farrell said he's going to fill in a setup role already today, so that's a big move for the Red Sox to kind of bolster their back end of the bullpen as well.
It blew one yesterday to the Royals, which I think might have kind of little impetus to get a deal done. But the Red Sox' biggest problem is their offense. Hard to believe I'm saying that as a team that spent centuries, with great offenses and bad pitching. They just have no one there to drive in runs. And as I said earlier, there were no big bats mentioned at all moving. And I thought if the Red Sox were going to make a trade, it would have been for a bat, and not necessarily for a pitcher. Reed's a help, and I'm not surprised the Mets got him. And I don't know, Ricky, the Red Sox players that the kids that they sent for the Mets. I assume that the Mets did their due diligence in who they got for Reed.
They were not going to get much for a rental. It was 3 relief pitcher prospects. One was a second-round pick in 2012, Jamie Callahan, who may make the majors this year or at some point. He's had a good year. A couple of low-A arms as well. So I think the Red Sox did well, and I think it also takes the pressure off Joe Kelly. When he does come back, he'll pitch the 7th, and I've seen Kelly throw 103 at points this year. So he's a nice to have a trio of Kelly, Reed, and Kimbrell. I think the Red Sox made out fine. The only question now is when David Price is not bashing Dennis Eckersley, can he actually pitch and be healthy? I mean, it's really their only bigger need now at this point. Their offense is going to be what it is. But that's why you need a second pitcher when Chris Sale is likely going to win the AL Cy Young. He's just been that good this year.
Sale's having a year for the ages for them and can't get any run support. But a lot depends on David Price and his ego.
Just imagine. We did our first DoDcast, and Chris Sale almost went to the Washington Nationals. Just imagine Chris Sale and Max Scherzer together.
Oh yeah, and I think the Cats behind me tonight too.
They could win. They could win 80. They could be the 110 win team with those two.
Right, but it would have cost a lot more than Giolito and Dunning and Lopez for that.
You would have only added Robles into the Adam Eaton trade.
I think the Eaton trade works out in the end. But yes, I went to bed that night. I've said this before, thinking that the deal was done, that they were going out for Chinese or whatever they were doing, and woke up I think at 5:30, kind of curious to see what had happened, and was stunned that the deal hadn't been done yet. Anyway, so yeah, I think overall, the teams that there was a lot of players that didn't move today. Brad Hand, and probably the biggest name that we thought was going to go, Justin Verlander tweeted out his status from the Tigers clubhouse about 10 minutes before 4 o'clock. I love Justin. I mean, too bad that the money is just so ridiculous because he would just fit right in here. But the big starters did go. It's going to make a very interesting last month of before the waiver deadline to see what happens.
On another Nationals note, too, we didn't get to this. They didn't deal position players because they're going to get some back. And Michael Taylor is starting a rehab assignment tonight in Potomac. So after the game tonight, tune in to me on the DoDcast, and we'll have more updates on what Michael Taylor is doing. But that's a big help. I mean, the fact that Taylor making a rehab assignment before Worth, I think, is pretty significant.
Someone said, why aren't they after so-and-so? What improvements are they going to make? I said, well, they're about to get Worth, Taylor, and Trey Turner back. And that's kind of like having a trade right there.
I did see that tweet, and someone said there was 7 wins or something since July, but they've also been 9-6 since the break. They've actually been a really good team since they acquired Doolittle and Madsen. I think that's how you have to evaluate them as.
They needed that mental break. They played 29 games in 30 days, including it just as frustrating as it was for the Orioles to have that one makeup game in between there, and they were a tired club at the end of the first half. They were making lots of mental mistakes that good clubs don't make. I know I've talked about it on Twitter and on DistrictOnDeck.com that you're not seeing them make this time around. This team looks a lot more confident and a lot more relaxed since the All-Star break, and it's paid off. They were really the only team in the division to be buyers, except for HA Ramos. They're the best.
Yeah, and like you guys said, getting these injured players back is going to be huge for them. Last year when Trey Turner came up, he kind of provided an instant spark, and I think while Brian Goodwin has done well in the leadoff spot, he isn't Trey Turner. So just getting Trey Turner back to the top of the lineup, and if he can get on base, and once you have Worth back in the 2-hole, Worth sees a lot of pitches. He'll give Turner opportunities to steal. He'll give the heart of the lineup more chances to see pitches. So I think, yeah, getting Turner and Worth back especially is just going to be huge for this team. It'll, like you said, it'll be like going out and trading for a couple definitely quality players.
Okay, Ricky slipped out because he's on assignment for District on Deck tonight, Drew. He was doing something else, and it was supposed to happen a half hour ago, which is why we started early. I think to kind of wrap this up, Guy, I think if you were to look at where this team was coming out of the All-Star break, kind of bumped and bruised, and where they are now, I think with the exception of the Strasburg thing, which is kind of a big mystery to begin with, they have fixed the biggest issue they had going into October. And if you were to say to me, even with what the Dodgers have done today, let the chips fall where they may. Anything can happen in a best-of-7 series or even a best-of-5 series against the Cubs. I think Washington has the horses to get it done. It's now a question of actually getting it done.
Yeah, absolutely. This is probably the best offense that I've ever seen with this team, and this bullpen now is shaping into be a quality bullpen with guys like Enny Romero starting to figure things out. Oliver Perez even has pitched better lately. And then the 3 new relievers. I think this team, as long as Steven Strasburg is healthy, this is arguably the best team that the Nationals have had, and I think they do have a good chance of possibly winning their first playoff series this year at least.
Absolutely. I feel good about the direction of this team going forward. Are there better teams out there? Yes, but baseball postseasons are tournaments. They're not. They don't necessarily bring you the best teams. The 2 best teams are not guaranteed to make the finals. When you have a 10-team postseason tournament, that's what happens. It's not who's hot now; it's who's hot in October. Do the Diamondbacks or Rockies catch fire down the stretch, making them dangerous to the Dodgers? We've seen what's happened with the Cubs over the course of the last month. It's not, we play 162 for seeding and such, but, who gets hurt between now and then? I mean, the Dodgers have lost their best pitcher. They can't lose another. So, yes, on paper, there are better teams out there, but we play these games. So, I'm happy with the direction the Nats have gone in.
Yeah, and in the postseason, pitching and defense really win games. And, I'll put Max Scherzer, Steven Strasburg, and Gio Gonzalez as a top 3 against really anyone else's top 3 and feel pretty comfortable with them.
Absolutely. And Anthony Rendon is just completely underrated. His defense at third will win you a game. There will be a game where he'll catch a liner with runners in scoring position to stop a rally. It doesn't have to be a double play. It just has to stop a rally, and Rendon is capable of doing that. And so is Turner. I was really impressed with his defense when he was healthy.
Yeah, I think the move back to his natural position of shortstop has been huge for him. And once he comes back, like I said, he should be a huge addition for this team.
Absolutely. Anything else on your mind?
No, I think we just about covered everything from a pretty eventful trade deadline.
It's been a busy day. Go ahead and take us home.
All right, so we have the game tonight against Miami. Gio Gonzalez is on the mound against his hometown Miami Marlins. Who's pitching for Miami tonight? Do you remember?
I don't off the top of my head.
I think it's Arena. He's one of the younger pitchers. So believe Ricky will be with you for that one. Up on the site today, I had 5 storylines to watch for this Miami series, and Ricky was running a live thread throughout the trade deadline. So to catch up on all the moves that happened, definitely go check that out. It's got lots of great info from everything that happened today. We'd appreciate if you like and subscribe to us on YouTube, if you give us a like on Facebook, and if you'd follow us on Twitter at District on Deck. So from everyone at District on Deck, I'm Drew Douglas, and we'll see you tonight after the Marlins game. Have a good night.